I'm Rachel, and welcome to Town Talks. We are here at the high school today with the queen of agriculture herself, Mrs. Sue Schafer. So, Sue, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me today.
Thank you for having me. I sure appreciate it. I think this is a great opportunity.
I do too. So, we're just going to jump right in. Harvest season is well underway, and safety is a big concern this year. We've had a couple of unfortunate incidents, and with it being so dry, so we really want to touch on how you teach safety in the classroom.
Well, one of the best things that we actually do is we partner up with the Christian County Farm Bureau on an Ag Safety Day. And Alec Myers does such a wonderful job with the Christian County Farm Bureau, and they have a group of young leaders, and they basically put together a very hands-on farm safety day out at the fairgrounds where our administration allows us to get a bus and go out there every hour for every kid to be able to go through the demonstration. So they have a combine set up out there where the kids are going to get in a truck right behind it and see how hard it is to see around, and then also be able to get in a combine and see, like, hey, I can't see that truck behind me. We do that behind a sprayer, behind a semi, a big four-wheel drive tractor with a field cultivator. So it puts those kids in that position of, okay, let's think about going down a road at 60 mile an hour and think about how that farmer can't see you, and the importance of just really truly paying attention and doing their part as being a defensive driver.
And how different is it from being on the road to being up there? Can you see it all?
It is very challenging, and the thing is they continue to make equipment better in terms of that. You pretty much have windows open all the way around you. But the biggest thing is it's a big machine, and it's got a ton of power, and it's wider than it really needs to be, and you're getting over on the side of the road, and people don't realize how important it is to just really always make sure that that farmer sees you before you're passing, and to really truly think and to not get in a hurry. And I understand people, you want to get to where you're going, but you want to get there alive too. And it's one of those things that people don't realize how hard it is for that farmer to see you.
So, what's your advice to the people on the road to give the farmers the best chance they can?
The biggest thing I will say is don't get in a hurry. Never pass in a no passing zone. Pay attention to the flashers, because the flashers might be going, and if you're distracted driving by texting or whatever, and those flashers are going, and all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I'm going to pass, and you don't pay attention, and they all of a sudden flip on their left turn signal, and you start to pass, that's not going to end well for you. And the thing is most of the time those accidents are not good for the person that is in the car or the truck. Combine is going to be 80,000 pounds plus, and that is a lot of kinetic energy that you're going to be hitting into. So you got to be careful.
You're not going to win that.
No, you're not. And you got to think, because I think that my opinion is, I've been around farmers for a long time, and they are very conscientious, very safe. They're not going to put themselves in bad positions. But it's got to be a two-way street. Got to be careful.
Another thing that we want to touch on this year is the grain bin safety.
Yeah.
So we've had a couple of unfortunate incidents in the county. So how do you teach grain bin safety to the students?
The biggest thing is we talk about specifics. And out of the 306 kids I have, I'm going to say I probably got 30 that have been in a grain bin. So I want them all to understand how dangerous agriculture is. So I do have a really nice Google slideshow where I show what it is like, and with video clips on the inside of a grain bin where maybe the grain had molded a little bit and there's a little bit of a false floor, and somebody's walking on it and all of a sudden it gives way. We try to show those different demonstrations in there. We also talk a lot about sweep augers. We talk a lot about never, get in a grain bin when there's something being augered out, never work alone, all those types of things. And it just can't be stressed enough, because I think we ignore some of those things sometimes when we get in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I think that young kids don't probably always get taught exactly, how dangerous those things can be. So I show the demonstrations and things of that nature, so they have a good understanding of it. The biggest thing is we get into situations where we don't like that we have, spoiled grain or whatever. But the problem is, let's not make it worse by having a major injury or a fatality. So we try to talk about sometimes bad things can turn very, very tragic. Bad things are bad enough. Let's not turn them tragic.
Yeah, don't make their day worse than
yes.
it already is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, most farmers, are working long hours.
Yeah.
And you got to be very cognitive of fatigue and making bad decisions, and sometimes call it a day, even though you don't want to, because bad decisions can lead to tragic outcomes.
That is true. So, is there like a checklist, like a check safety list that you run through with your students to help get them or help them create the habit of being safe?
Well, the biggest thing is I would like to say it'd be nice if there was a nice place you could go and find a checklist for everything. But I will say every farm is a little bit different, and I do think a lot of the things that farm kids are around is, and they understand it because they're around it every single day. And that is the one thing that is good to have as a routine. And routine usually is going to keep things a little safer, but sometimes routine can make us a little bit, like, that just happened and I didn't realize it could have happened. So, like in the mornings, just around our farm equipment, we're going to, clean off the windows, blow it off, grease parts, grease zerts, fill it up, check oil, all those types of things. And with the dry conditions right now, it's really essential that you go through those check inspections and make sure, because we don't want any faulty equipment that could throw a spark and could be a huge hazard. So just daily routine is good, but you always got to be ready for the unpredictable too. So.
And adapt to the conditions that you're in, because like you said, it's very dry and there's a countywide burn ban right now because of the fear for fire. And farm fires, they happen.
They do happen. And it doesn't always happen just because of faulty equipment. I mean, I guess, when something gets a little warm, you could say that's faulty equipment. But I just know, even just, the last few days with the heat the way it is, trucks run a little hotter, and it's something you got to worry about. Biggest thing is with the burn ban and the fire hazards we have right now, you really got to make sure before you go to the field that all your fire extinguishers are in good shape and up to date and that you have plenty of them. One of the things that we're doing this year at our farm, that we don't do every year because it's so dry, we're actually causing a little bit more labor, but we're pulling a water wagon with a truck to every field we're at. And I know a lot of people are like, that's only, a few, 1,000 gallons of water, but that could make the difference. And field fires with it is so extremely dry right now, could get out of hand so quickly, that you want to do what you can. And sometimes fire extinguishers are just not enough. We have a great system. 911's great around here. Our fire departments are awesome, but it still takes some time to get there, and we got to do what we can do to keep things safe until they get there to help us.
Right, better safe than sorry.
Exactly.
And, trying to head off the tragedy before it becomes a tragedy.
Exactly. Sometimes you just got to think ahead and take a little bit more time out of your schedule. That takes one more person to pull that to every field every morning, but don't know. I mean, if we need it, it could be the difference between life and death. So big deal.
We would like everybody to stay alive.
Yeah, it's a big thing, and just to the safety of one. We have, luckily, knock on wood, haven't had a fire here this year, but they take off pretty darn quick when you have grain dust. So
because the grain dust is what causes the
and if you have like a bearing going out or whatever happens that throws a spark or some heat and a fire goes up, it's just so dry right now. There's not a lot you can do to slow it down. You got to do what you got to do with a fire extinguisher and water, and call the fire department. So if you can head it off a little bit before they get there, that's going to make a big difference.
It's wonderful that you are teaching that and living that at your farm.
Yeah,
I like that for you.
Yeah, you got to teach what you do, and I think it's important for kids to realize that agriculture is the second most dangerous job after mining, and the only way you can stay safe is always be thinking about what your next step can actually be.
Is that because of the size of the machines, or just
the size of the machines is a little bit, but more importantly, it's the working parts. Every piece of implement is basically hooked into the tractor through a PTO shaft, that power takeoff shaft. It is very dangerous. You never want to have any loose clothing around it. That is dangerous. Obviously, it is big equipment. It's hard to see around. Some of the things that we deal with are very dangerous in terms of, like anhydrous ammonia. You got to always be aware. And not only on that side, but even on the livestock side, cattle are unpredictable, and animals are. And, I mean, it's just something you always got to be thinking about. I mean, just yesterday we had a cow calf, and, we go out and we put a tag in that calf's ear and we vaccinate it. Well, mama cow wasn't really happy that my son went out to do that, and he got chased a few places and got away. And luckily it was him and not me. He's a little faster. But those are things you got to be aware of. And one of the things is that she never did that in the first two calves she had. And then this one, she decided she liked it a little better than the last two. So you got to always be aware, and you got to always think, and you got to be ready. And
escape route,
yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. And it is a good thing that he did go out there with the gator and had a place to get out of the way and get away. And the other thing is always working in pairs. Just having somebody have your back. Even if they can't help you, they can at least call 911. Yeah, and that's a big thing. Kids, I talk about that all the time. Don't work alone. It's just not worth it. So yeah,
safety first always.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about safety, so we're going to move on to a little bit more of a happier subject. You've mentioned your family farm.
Yeah.
You want to go into some of the history behind your farm?
Yeah, the farm, I grew up in northern Illinois and met my husband at college, and basically their farm has been in their family since the 40s. Aaron's grandpa started it. My husband's grandfather actually grew up on a farm, but there wasn't enough there for everybody. So he kind of moved a few miles to the north and started his own thing, which is really, really hard to do, and has turned it into a very successful operation. So it started with Jack Schafer and then went to Mike Schafer, and that's Aaron's dad, who he still farms with, and then Aaron, my husband, and then now my son Eric just returned home to the family farm here this summer. So it's a tradition. It's a family legacy that you want to make sure it continues to thrive and be successful. We farm corn and soybeans, and we have cattle, and really just want to make sure that we continue it on and continue to work and be progressive, be good to the environment, but also be productive, and do what's right in the environment as well as for the consumer today.
So do you think that your son's going to carry it on to be a century farm?
I hope so. I think that's the plan. At least that's the questions that we asked when we asked why he wanted to return to the family farm. He graduated from Oklahoma State a few years ago, and then taught at Casper College in Wyoming for a year, and then just decided, I really want to learn more about the corn and soybean side of things, and I think I need to come home and get started with that. And he does have the cattle ability, and he's working really hard on the corn and soybean side and learning some of that. And that's the thing, you just can't learn some of this stuff in a textbook, right, or even in a lab. It's pretty much learning by doing, and doing it at a very young age, and just falling in and learning how to continue to problem solve and figure out the things that need to happen for a farm to be successful. So
how do you bring that learn by doing into the classroom and into the FFA program?
One of the biggest things is I try to take the kids out and see different situations. Like we were talking about the farm safety day, we also go out to our FFA plots, like the Tower plot and our Mount Auburn plot, give kids actually a chance to run some equipment with a farmer right there with them, and it works out great. But that's the best way of doing learning by doing. And I want them to really all know where their food comes from. There's way too much misconception out there.
Right.
And we want kids to learn when they are in here where their food comes from, why it's safe, why it's wholesome. And if they have any questions, instead of listening to whoever on social media, ask a real farmer, right, and find it from the source. Yeah. Just because we have somebody out there saying this, that, or whatever, is it factual? Mm-hmm. Too much misinformation out there. Ask the people that do it on a daily basis.
I mean, we are in Christian County, which is a huge farming county, so the commodity of a farmer is not hard to find.
No, it's really very, very eeasy. Yeah. So
that is wonderful. And I do want to touch on all these wonderful awards behind us. How have you felt? How many years is it? 20 some odd years?
28 years here at Taylorville. This is my 30th year of teaching.
Oh my gosh.
And there's always big controversy. How long Schafer going to be here? I plan to stay until 2030, and I do plan to retire then. So next year it will be my last class. I start as freshman through senior, so 2030 is kind of when I'm going to graduate from Taylorville High School. But I've been really fortunate to have some incredible kids over the years, and so many of them are community leaders now. And I think of so many of them that do have agriculturally related jobs that are on this wall for winning state proficiency awards, kind of recently, like Tanner Mickey, he was, one of the star finalists over America for farmer. He was star farmer of Illinois, great young man that's farming now in our community, and I can go all the way back to when I first started here, like BJ May, who was an electrician in the area, and he was a state winner in electricity. And then I also think of some of the ones that are non-traditional, such as like Jessica Stout. She was a national science fair winner, a star over Illinois in agri-science, and she is a very, very successful doctor, OBGYN in Indianapolis. And just, it's incredible to be able to be a teacher that has the opportunity to do that. And I think of some of the other ones that started out farming, like Jake Butcher. He was a kid that raised pigs up in Mount Auburn and went to the U of I and then went out to Iowa to law school. And now he's a lobbyist for ag education. And he is the reason we have a lot of grant funding to do the great things we do in ag classrooms, not just here, but every ag program in the state of Illinois. And I believe he was a 2003 graduate of Taylorville High School. And I guess one of my favorites is Jennifer Waters. Jennifer Herman was her name, was a farm girl from Mount Auburn as well. And now she is the field advisor for all the ag teachers in Illinois. And she helps also work with Jake Butcher in securing funding for ag programs across the state, and Taylorville graduate. So I always like to say being a teacher is a little bit like what Forrest Gump says, life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And I love the fact of every day these kids that come in here, I have no idea who they're going to be or where they're going to go, but it's so cool. Like I get the opportunity to teach them and get to work with them, and it's just really, really fun to watch some of them, and then they come back and they help and they bring on the next generation. So that's great.
That's wonderful. And obviously they've touched your lives as much as you've touched theirs because you remember them.
Well, I do. Really I got a lot of really good stories, and I enjoy going around the plaques, and just looking at some of these here and stuff. And like this one here, Travis Winans, incredible athlete, but still always made time for FFA. Now is an incredible agronomist, and he was a National Proficiency Award finalist with turfgrass. So we have no excuses. You can be a great athlete. Yeah. You can still be a great FFA member and great community leader. I call him up nowadays, and he'll come in and he'd help interview if I asked. And that's the thing that's really, really awesome. So
it's wonderful, and I think that is our signal to have to end this. So thank you for coming to our town talk today, and thank you for talking to me, Sue.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Bye.